The Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement presents Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM and GalaxyAfriwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station, weekly discussions and live debate on all issues affecting the African community at home and abroad. Tune in Mondays 8 to 10 p.m. and have your say as we talk it straight and make it plain. It's live, it's hot, it's scintillating, it's real. It's Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only de-brainwashing station.
Tendai Mwari, be thankful unto God. Greetings, Galaxy family. You're tuned into Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Hosting to this evening's show is Brother Shakara and myself, Sister Kai. It's Monday, the 26th of September, and it's 3 minutes past the hour of 8. Alkebu-Lan is known for keeping its finger on the pulse of the community, addressing the most pertinent and controversial issues some radio stations just won't touch. So keep it locked on 102.5 FM or www.galaxyafriwi.com and join us for the next 2 hours by calling
0207 193 0174. Alternatively, 07923 334 515. You can text us right now on 07399 359 614. Our show title this evening is African Spirituality. How do we return to the way? Tendai
Mwari.
Yo, this is Swiss So Solid. Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Galaxy 102.5. Here's the fire.
Tendai Mwari. Yes, brothers and sisters, this is Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. It's a good opportunity now, if you haven't done so already. Text a friend, call a friend, or a member of your family, and just say to them, have you ever listened to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. This be a good opportunity to do so. For 2 hours, we're going to have a live debate, brothers and sisters. We have a guest this evening, and you'll have the opportunity to phone in and discuss the issues that we are raising. And the discussion is, how do we, African spirituality, how do we return to the way? Let me welcome our co-host, Tendai Mwari Shakara.
Tendai Mwari, greetings, Mama Kai. Greetings to all the Africa Speaks of Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio family. African power for all African people. Ankh Uja Seneb, life, prosperity and health, as spoken in the ancient Kemetic language. Uhuru means freedom. Rastafari, Hotep, kings and queens. Tendai Mwari.
Shakara, have you had a good week?
Yes, for the most part, it's been a very busy one. I don't know if, I'll announce it later on. I've been spending most of the week trying to organise for quite a significant event. That's what I've been doing. We'll mention that a little bit later on, Kings and Queens. But yes, just preparing for Black History Month as well, Mamakai. You know what I'm saying? For the poetry show that we got coming up. I say poetry show when we're merging the spoken word and the written word. The Lion Story, Rise of the Griots on Friday the 21st of October. The response has been beautiful, and people are saying that I should make it a monthly event, which I'm kind of getting my head around at the moment. You know what I'm saying? It look like it can work still. You know what I mean? We have to find different ways of ministering to our people.
That's right.
And so I've been gifted with this spoken word vibration around me. So it's best that we make the most use of it. So we're just preparing for that at the moment, Mama Kai. You know what I'm saying? And gearing up for that. You know, hopefully, we know it will be a success once we put our endeavor best into it. You know what I mean? So Tendai Mwari.
Let me take this opportunity to also greet our resident guest. He's a spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, co-chair to the Interim National African People's Parliament, a UK ambassador to the UNIA-ACL under the leadership now of
President General Michael Duncan.
And his name is Brother Leader Mbandaka. Tendai
Mwari, Sister Kai, forgetting your husband's name. Tendai Mwari, I bring greetings as always to you, Sister Kai, to our brother Shakara, and indeed to our beloved and treasured listeners. As always, in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of our motherland, Alkebu-Lan, Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness hope, and prosperity for all African people upon the face of Mother Earth. Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. It is a joy to be an African, a joy and a blessing to be on Galaxy Radio, ministering to the most important people on the planet, the sons and daughters of Africa, in this month of the birth of the Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Tendai Mwari. Brother Leader, obviously we have honored the great Osajifo, who was born on the 21st of September.
That's right, 1909.
That's right. And you, I was made aware recently, I'm not sure when it came into being, but the month of September is now called Osajifo by the brothers and sisters of Wadu, a Pan-African network. But I'm not sure when it came into being. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure when that came into being. I mean, I heard that through the grapevine as well. But it's an honor that I would certainly salute.
Definitely.
Given the stature of the man, given the powerful legacy that he has left the African continent, and indeed the African world, because we have to remember, not only did the Osajifo seek to inspire the African continent to unite as one super nation, one super state, if you will, but he also called on Africans worldwide to come to Ghana and to join in with the vision, the revolutionary vision that he had for the African continent, which was inspired, as we have said on a number of occasions, by the legacy of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I mean, we make a very important departure from the methodology of the Osajifo, which is that he sought to unite the African world with the Arab world. He included the Arabized regions of the African continent, and we find that problematic in our analysis of African continental politics. But there's so much about the work and about the vision of the Osajifo that was just so positive. And at least Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, that great leader of Tanzania, believes or has implied or inferred that Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah, before he died, he himself had departed from that view of the uniting of the Arabized aspect of the African continent with the indigenous African continent. And certainly Nyerere himself confessed that that was an error in his own thinking, and that he had moved away from that, and he said before he died, I think he died in 1997 or 1999, but before he died, he said that that Africa below the Sahara, Black Africa, was on its own, and that Black Africa must unite in the interests of Black Africa. I'm paraphrasing. So, but we, as we say, we continue to honor the life, the works, the vision, the legacy of Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Give thanks for that, Brother Leader. Brother Leader, on the 24th of September was also a very special day for you.
Tendai Mwari.
24th
of September is a very special day for you and me, Sister Kai, because this is a day on which we were joined together in divine conjugal union. So,
of course,
brothers and sisters, we are happy to share with you that Sister Kai and I were celebrating our anniversary on Imani Day, Saturday, which is also the 81st birthday of my father. So celebrations all round, and we give thanks and praises to the Creator and Muzimu Mukuru, our great ancestors, for blessing us to be together. And we are praying for many, many more years of divine blessing upon our sacred union. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
I'm sure we have the prayers and well wishes of all of our brothers and sisters in our massive African world family as well. Tendai Mwari. Thanks for reminding us of that, Sister Kai.
That's okay.
You got a big smile on your face. You want to tell the listeners why?
Why have I got a big smile? You haven't tell the listeners why?
Why you have such a big smile on your face when we're talking about our anniversary, Sister Kai? All right, let's
Don't worry. Yes, African-centered conjugal union. I
just wanted to share that with the listeners.
Live on air, Kings and Queens.
That's a pre-discussion before.
Because the listeners can't see you, so I just wanted them to know.
That's a backdrop.
Sister Kai is beaming all over the place, brothers and sisters. She's trying to downplay it, trying to be all professional and downplay it, brothers and sisters. But the whole, I mean, I'm blinded by the light in the studio at the moment.
It's worth mentioning in this on the subject of notable events of our history in September that I see on the wall. Like for Galaxy Radio, September is the month for Professor Sally, who was born on the 3rd of September 1930 in Masaka, Uganda. And there was a discussion just taking place on the beautiful country of Uganda. So we just want to hail Baba Sally, who just had a great impact on Africa UK during the time that he was with us, and in honouring Baba Sally, we honour his son, Reverend Tamale Sally, who is very much continuing his works, so a great tribute to his father's legacy. So we just want to send a prayer of blessing to the spirit of our prophet of healing, Professor Charles Sally.
Indeed. And just to say that that WADU, WADU, stands for the World African Diaspora Union. Sister Kai mentioned WADU earlier on. I believe the chair of WADU is, if I'm not mistaken, is Baba Kekudra, otherwise known as Baba Leonard Jeffries, is the chair of that organization. Very important international organization for us as African people. So we certainly respect any of their pronouncements. Tendai
Mari. Brother Leader.
Yes.
Right. On the... Let me get the date right because, my head no good. All right. On the 2nd of October, we will be launching our Shamira, relaunching our Shamira back in the community.
Yes.
That's our African spiritual worship.
That's right. Every first Sunday of the month.
Every first Sunday of the month. And it is now reopened again to the community en masse.
Yes.
And it will be taking place this October, the 2nd, at 12...
From 12 noon till 5 p.m. Beloved brothers and sisters.
And we're calling the community to come and worship in a traditional African spiritual way, which binds a community together.
That's right.
The Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement comes together every month, and that day is seen as the beginning of our month.
That's correct.
As a spiritual connection as we proceed into the rest of the month and with our activities.
Yes.
So we'd like to invite the community, and the details are, I'm just giving it at the top of the show because it's I want people to write it down or log it wherever they log it.
Yeah.
And it's at the Chestnut Community Centre, 280 St Anne's Road, Tottenham, N15
5BN.
5BN, okay.
Yes, most definitely. You'll be hearing more on that later on in the show, Kings and Queens, most definitely. But just to reiterate, Shunira is spoken in the show in the language of Zimbabwe, means worship, and we say African-centered worship, Kings and Queens, to be specific. So yes, you can join us in a couple on Wednesday, Sunday's time, the 2nd of October, which is the beginning of isn't it coming Umoja Day? Is it?
No, not this one.
No,
is it this one?
It's definitely the following one.
Hold on.
No, you're right.
Second
yeah. All right. Sorry, this coming Sunday.
Yes.
Excuse me, Kings and Queens.
Let's not confuse listeners.
Most definitely. This coming Sunday.
I know time are flying now, but we have to keep track. We have to keep up with time, brothers and sisters. Tendai Mwari.
And I know some people ask me, what's the dress code and so forth. Well, we in the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement attire ourselves in traditional African dress. But that doesn't mean if you have or you don't have, that shouldn't stop you from coming. You come because you're an African, and you come, and render your hearts, not your garments.
And let's be clear, brothers and sisters, in addition to grounding us in our spiritual cultural tradition, which is what our Shamira is designed to do, it is also designed to lay the foundation, the African spiritual and cultural foundation for African nation building. It is about molding our communal family together spiritually and culturally as one, bringing us closer together on the social, cultural, and spiritual levels, brothers and sisters, a myriad of levels. So there are there's a multiplicity of functions that our Shamira is aimed to serve. So please, brothers and sisters, get your fineries, your traditional fineries. If you don't have the traditional fineries, come with your heart, come with your soul, brothers and sisters, and come to the shrine of our ancestors, and let us worship together and begin to have that feel, share that experience of African spirituality as we build our nation, as we build our community.
Tendai Mwari. Guess in New Kings and Queens, you're tuned to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only deep brainwashing station. Our subject today is African spirituality. How do we return to the way? We have a very, very special guest coming in the studio very soon, very shortly, Kings and Queens, so do stay tuned. Before we get into our main subject, though, it would be correct of us to send a prayer of elevation to the spirit of a brother by the name of William Nunn, or Bill Nunn, who is an actor most famous for his role as Radio Raheem in the Spike Lee drama Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing, brothers and sisters. Radio Raheem, the brother who played Radio Raheem, should I say, passed away. His name's William or Bill Nunn. Passed away just a couple of days ago, Kings and Queens. But I'm mentioning it because, as we know, Do the Right Thing was a film that really culminated into a narrative on police brutality, and Radio Raheem was the victim of said police brutality, which resulted in the taking of his life, obviously. But that film was such a pivotal moment in terms of African cinema worldwide, and that character was the most iconic character from that film, and so in the current climate, it's very interesting that a brother like that will pass away in terms of what the character that he's known most iconically for passes away, and it causes us to have to reflect on what that film represented and what his character represented. And we see many there's been so many Radio Raheems this year alone, you know what I'm saying, but for the last few years the profile of Radio Raheems has kind of elevated somewhat, brothers and sisters. So I'm checking to see which popular television stations are going to be brave enough to show Do the Right Thing on their stations in the wake of Brother William's passing. But as we always say in the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, may he rise on the wings of our art after a favourable judgment in the Council of Asara. Tendai
Mwari.
And in that vein, let us also mention a brother whom we were involved in laying to rest on Koumba Day, Friday gone.
Yes.
Brother Luther Edwards, whose sister Nerissa had engaged us to lead part of his passing over ceremony on Friday. Our brother was the victim of a vicious, cruel gang attack from which he lost his life. But from what we've learned from his sister and other members of the family and friends, he was a brother who was grounded in his African consciousness, who loved his people, who was proud of who he was as an African, who was a listener of Galaxy Radio as well, an ardent listener and supporter of Galaxy Radio.
As well as his sister and your husband.
Absolutely. And, it was really a very touching and very moving occasion. But I'm very pleased to say that the family were touched and overjoyed by the ceremony that we were able to deliver for our brother, and to give him an appropriate and fitting going home ceremony, which reflected his convictions and reflected how he lived his life, which is what his sister so much wanted for him. So, Sister Nerissa, if you're listening, I'm sure you are. You are also an avid listener of Galaxy Radio. Please accept our condolences, and may the soul of your brother continue to rise like Ra on the wings of Ma'at, after a favorable judgment in the Council of Asar. Ashe.
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 Amen Ra.
Amen Ra.
It is done.
It is done.
And we must also acknowledge the aftermath of the sending home of our mother, the mother of Brother Abu Ratata, which happened on Near Day last Thursday.
Yes.
I have not had the opportunity of speaking to Brother Abu as yet, but I heard him on the radio today, and he sounds in fine voice, and I am sure that he has drawn some inspiration from the celebration of the life of his mother, our mother. And so we send our prayers and our blessings to the entire family, and we continue to dance and chant praise songs in celebration of the life of our mother. May her soul also continue to rise like Ra on the wings of Ma'at after a favorable judgment in the Council of Asar. Ashe.
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 Ashe. Amen Ra.
Amen Ra.
It is done. Tendai Mware.
Tendai Mware. And last but not least, on the 24th of this month, another special day, but it's same special day, but it's another special occasion for that special day that I've already been engaged in. Nomzamo Madikazela, also known as Winnie Mandela, it was she celebrated her 81st birthday.
80th.
Oh, 80th.
Yeah, she was born in 36, 1936.
Your father's 81, isn't it?
Yes.
Get muddled up now.
Yeah.
She look good, boy.
She looks absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You know, so, you know, we celebrate the longevity of this beautiful warrior queen. This awesome warrior queen.
Telling you.
Who, you know, has
endured so much.
Yes. And given so much and sacrificed so much.
That's right.
Unselfishly for the cause of our people over many, many years, brothers and sisters. And so let us send her our positive energies. Let us evoke the spirits of Muzumumokuro, our great ancestors, to continue to bless her. Let us summon the power of the Supreme Being, Mwari Nyakusika, God the creator of the universe, the God of Africa, to rain upon her continued strength, continued energies, continued blessings, so that she may persist with her work to empower our people and to prepare our people for our total liberation. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Discussion this evening, brothers and sisters.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. The discussion this evening, African spirituality. How do we return to the way? Let's listen to this.
Tonight, Kings and Queens, you're tuning to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only brainwashing station. That was the sounds of our sister Mama Ella Ando from the album Oriki Ogun, an album full of Orisha praise chants, Kings and Queens, full of Orisha praise chants from our brothers and sisters on the beautiful island of Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? Don't get it twisted, you know. Our traditions have preserved themselves across the waters, Kings and Queens. Yeah, be not in any doubt about that. Before we officially open our subject matter, we're going to hand over to Brother Leader for a quick update.
Tonight, I'm just going to give you, brothers and sisters, the bank details for the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement. For those of you who are ready and willing to give, to make a contribution to help to aid the continuation of the liberation work of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement by way of our range of programs in service to our people, in service indeed to the African world community, and in particular to Africa UK, the African nation domiciled in the UK. The bank details are as follows, brothers and sisters. NatWest account, which is the account number of which is 23503351. That's 23503351. Sort code is 560017. That's 560017. The account name is Mama Afrika. That's Africa spelled with a K. Mama Afrika, AFRIKA. And for further information, please call 07908 814152. That's 07908 814152 or 07939 292720. That's 07939 292720. Now I hope that wasn't too fast. If it was, please send us a text or give us a call. Brother Kweko is waiting to take your calls, brothers and sisters. So, and we will repeat that information if needs be. Tendai Mwari.
Yes, indeed, Kings and Queens. You're tuning to Africa Speaks of Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only brainwashing station. Our subject today is African spirituality. How do we return to the way? Tendai Mwari. In December 2015. In a December 2015 article for the digital Pan-African news website Mail and Guardian Africa, Christine Mungai declared, "The future of world religion is African. So what would an African Christianity or Islam look like?" Using projections from Pew Research, the article reveals that fueled by the continent's accelerating population growth, a predicted 20% of the world's population compared to around 12% today, within the next 70 years or so, the majority, some 50 plus percent of the world's Christians will live in Africa. The Muslim population in sub-Saharan Africa is projected to grow by nearly 60% in the next 20 years, from 242.5 million in 2010 to 385.9 million in 2030. However, Europe and Saudi Arabia will probably continue to be the physical centers of their respective faiths. According to most recent census data, the proportion of religious adherents is Christianity 49%, Islam 39%. Traditional other religions, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and Rastafari, 12%. As it is globally, so it is locally, with Christian Today contributing editor Ruth Gledhill reporting in February 2015, quote, "Future of religion in Britain is Islam and black majority churches," unquote. Other reports advance the same narrative. Quote, "Nearly half of churchgoers in inner city London, some 48%, are black," unquote. And, quote, "Why are black people turning to Islam?" unquote. So it is within this climate that Dalian Adofo, educationist, visual communicator, social and cultural commentator, writer, brother, and co-director of the essential documentary Ancestral Voices, has just released his book ancestral voices, spirit is eternal. Quote, this book is a groundbreaking exploration of humanity's oldest documented faith practice, African spirituality, a term often criticized for assuming homogeneity in African philosophy and culture that apparently does not exist. However, these research findings reveal intricate and broad commonalities across the various systems that clearly evidence a high level of unison in the cosmological philosophies and practices of African people. The author explores the topic across millennia, from the times of ancient black Egyptians to contemporary practices on the continent and in the diaspora. Evidence are striking commonalities in the spiritual philosophies and practices over time and space, showing they are derived from a common mind or source. That's what we term voodoo, voodoo, Ifa, Candomblé, Palo, Mayombe, Kemetic spirituality, and the like are all but localized offshoots of the same tree, so to speak. As such, African spirituality is shown to be an apt umbrella term for the various expressions the world over, one that will give its adherents official recognition and rights in the same manner various aspects within mainstream religions are protected by law. The book also gives practical advice and suggestions from various systems on how to cultivate an African-centered spiritual life. So it is not just an essential piece of scholarly work to read, but also an invaluable manual of instruction to have for cultivating one's personal spiritual development. Unquote. The book delineates a liberty that legendary Ghanaian author Aikwe Amah simply refers to as the way. However, any orientation towards the way has to overcome the contradicting African participation in the organized Abrahamic religions, i.e. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, even when no less a figure than the eminent master teacher, the late Baba John Henry Clark, refers to them as male chauvinist murder cults. Moreover, where Baba Chinwezu outlines the journey from the way towards Abrahamic religions, he asserts that European conquest and Arab domination did undermine African civilization, culture, and self-respect. Thus, the quest for African spirituality could be described as a journey back to civilization, culture, and self-respect, where personal spiritual development is an aspect of the unitary whole that must be built communally. Mama Marimba Annie suggests that the required essence already lies within. Quote, our Africanness has existed within us primarily on an unconscious level, but the forces of evil are strong. European colonialism is powerful, and the unconscious survival of the African heritage is not enough to subdue it. This survival must be moved to the level of conscious awareness so that it can be used for political analysis, motivation, and commitment. The African worldview, revitalized, can again be a life-giving force. It promises eternal life to its descendants. One such vehicle is the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement's Shamira, which means worship in the Shona language of Zimbabwe. Under the motto, freedom begins with the freeing of the mind and the soul, Alkebu-Lan have reinstituted its communal worship, guiding the community to return to the way. The African community is invited to fellowship whilst engaging in African spirituality in practice in order to build a foundation for African culture that informs our political, economic, and social development. For more information, you can check our website, alkebulan.org/Shunira. Shamira takes place on the first Sunday of every month, starting from October the 2nd, this coming Sunday, at the Chestnuts Community Centre, 280 St. Anne's Road, N15 5BN, from 12 midday. So tonight, Kings and Queens, we ask the question, African spirituality, how do we return to the way? Why is there increasing global engagement in Christianity and Islam? Why is there increasing African global engagement in Christianity and Islam? Can African civilization, culture and self-respect be reconciled with adherence to Abrahamic religions? Can gatherings like Shamira bring our Africanness from the unconscious to the conscious level? Is it now too late for Africans to return to the way? As our very special guest, Kings and Queens, as already introduced, our resident guest, Brother Mbandaka. And our special guest in the studio is Brother Dalian Adofo, an educationalist, visual commentator, social and cultural commentator, writer on a range of issues, primarily social justice and marginalization. He is the author of the recently, newly hot off the press released book, Ancestral Voices, alongside his queen, Sister Verona Adofo, are the co-directors of the now critically acclaimed film Ancestral Voices, and the part 2 soon to be released, Kings and Queens. We just want to first of all say greetings and welcome Tendai Mwari to Brother Dalian. Tendai Mwari, Brother Dalian.
Tendai Mwari, thanks for having me.
My brother in the studio. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Yes. Welcome, Brother Dalian.
Thank you for having me, Brother
Thank you
Shakara.
for being here. We're going to have a very interesting conversation. Brothers and sisters, as you know, the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement is an African spiritual organization, and we're going to be doing more work on African spirituality through the vehicle of Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. But first and foremost, Brother Dalian, obviously, Ancestral Voices. Let me just give the listeners, first of all, a bit of an idea of your background in terms of country, culture, nationality, whatever it is, so they may get an idea of how you've come to do this kind of work that you're doing. Tendai
Mwari, Brother Leader and Mbandaka. Thanks for having me all. My background, I'm born in Ghana. I was brought here for schooling when I was 19. This was 1997. So I've lived here ever since. Raised a Catholic, so I was raised in a Catholic household. But then, you know,
that's a lot right there,
yeah. Well, you know, so
we'll come back to that.
That is the main background. And from the Catholicism, you know, I became a student of Islam. Once upon a time, I did a lot of studying on Hinduism, and I got into Buddhism quite strongly. And it's in Buddhism, interestingly enough, where I was introduced to, you know, the Buddha has these 8 principles for enlightenment, and each of those principles, you know, when I was introduced to them, I realized that I was aware of the principles within those statements, and I could actually find similar in Asante proverbs, because my background, I'm Asante, because you know, we trace it through the matrilineal line. So it's my mom that I basically come from my mom, so in that sense. So when I kind of became conscious of these similarities, you know, it sparked something in me to say, you know, why don't I know then anything about my own traditional religion in that sense, you know? So that is what mainly sparked the journey onwards, because the first thing that came to mind was, if, you know, Buddhism in that instance, once upon a time, was held in the same kind of negative tone, but then it took people like John McCartney, the Beatles and whatnot, is when Western celebrities started embracing these things, that all of us, and as we have it now, it's the world over. You have Christians, Muslims who practice yoga, meditation, and remember, these activities don't exist on their own. They are part of a spiritual philosophy and system, but you know, now people can take them out of that context and do that and speak of the benefits. So the decision that we came to at one point, between conversations between myself and my wife Verona, because her background as well, she explored the whole New Age movement, which is, I guess, to an extent, is an extension of European paganism. Yes, but again, it's earth-centered, you know, where there's a lot of reverence given to the earth, and the earth as mother, as teacher. So we then asked ourselves, but how come the African still is held in this, you know, the minute you mention African spirituality, the first thing is, oh, it's devil worship. You know, how can you have devil worship in a system that doesn't have the notion of the devil? So clearly there's some kind of a bamboozlement going on there.
Yes.
So then we decided to use our skills, because she's a video producer, you know, I have a creative background. We decided then to put our skills together to create something that will also attest to the African tradition. And that is how the first film was born, Ancestral Voices, Esoteric Knowledge, because we wanted to open this discussion,
Right.
because this is a subject people don't talk about. It's taboo, you know. Some people even want to have that conversation, say, nah, that would jinx me, you know, all these kind of superstitious responses to it, you know. So that's what brought that first film about. We took particular ideas that are held within all these mainstream religions, and then compared them to where they are found in the African, because it shows that they are actually more similar on a certain level than they are different. So if they are so similar, why is one set so positive and the other everyone's so afraid of it? So we wanted to bring forth the accurate representation of it.
Okay. Before we go further, let me jump back to something that was mentioned in the spec. This term African spirituality, and as you said, it's a controversial one.
Yes.
In fact, I, as an African coming from the Caribbean, it's often used as a terminology that basically we who have a utopian view of
That's
Africa,
right.
but weren't born there.
Yes.
that we use
Yes.
to really kind of lump Africa together with our romantic rose-tinted glasses.
Exactly.
But you're a brother born in Ghana, affirming the use of this term.
Yes.
Explain. I mean, we didn't explain it in the spec.
Of course. Nah, it's a very good point you brought up there, Brother Shakara, because I remember when I was filming in Brazil, I met a sister there, and when I told her why I was there to film, she's like, but isn't that a bit essentialist? You know, I'm trying to force there's so many different cultures in Africa, and they can't all be the same. So what do you mean by African spirituality, as you're implying that it's a one system? So, you know, I had to give her the breakdown, and this is what our research has shown, because we've been able to identify that what the Asian Kemethians or black Egyptians were the very foundation of, because you see, in a spiritual system is not like a religion. A religion, to a degree, is you have a space where you only speak to God at a certain time. But when you're talking about a spiritual system now, it's the social, it's the, should we say, the health or the well-being, it's also the psychology, it's about the social, it's everything.
Economics.
There you go. It informs all of that, right? So it's not the same in a sense. We can't compare a religion
no separation
to
of church and state.
There's none of that. There's actually no separation between everything, because everything is interconnected on a certain level. So we've been able to identify that those practices of the Asian Egyptians, we can find them as far down as in South Africa. Let's say among the Zulus, because we interviewed the High Sanusi, which is like the highest traditional priest, and he even showed us certain artifacts, right, which we will find in Asian Egypt. Now, if we're going to believe the narrative that Africans were so primitive once upon a time, you know, we don't have no means of travel, there's no cars, there's no boats or whatever else. Look at the size of Africa, right? How will someone who lives in the southern part be able to share the same philosophies and practice as those all the way up north? What, you're going to walk for 5 years to go up one way and walk 5 years to come down and share that knowledge? No. Rather, it tells us that perhaps what we call Africans of today with the different labels started off as one big family, because people do not share. Your spirituality is the highest expression of your culture. It's not something you go and give it out to people. For you to know it, that means you were part of that society. So that was one of the key things that I wanted to challenge. With that the so-called utopian idea of Pan-African is to assume everything about Africa is the same. Maybe we might have the different labels now, but when we deal with the philosophy, the thinking, because it's the thinking that produces the action. So if we find that the thinking is on a similar level, then yes, we can. And another reason why it's important, right, Brother Shakara, that I want us to use that term, is it has political value. You see, one of the things that at the minute practitioners of African spirituality face is random persecution from particularly Christians, especially the evangelicals. You know, I can show you examples from as far as Brazil, where they can murder people with impunity because they claim they are jinxing the whole community, and they can kill people and there's no repercussion. So we need, in a sense, a label, because we live in a European framework now, in that sense. So you have to use, in a sense, those tools to get what you also need. We know we have aspects called voodoo, you know, Ifa, but if we can now have, and I'm not the first to prove this, by the way, and I'll give references to other research where need be. If we can prove that these are all of the same source, then we can just use one label to describe them. Because remember, Christianity, you have Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians, Seventh-day Adventists are Christians, and some don't even believe in Jesus as the Son of God. There's certain sects within Christianity that don't, but because they fall under the label Christians, they have a certain level of political protection in that sense. So it's key that we don't continue to let people tell us, oh, this is voodoo, this is Ifa, and they have no relation. Do you understand? We need that label that, in a sense, is like a mother that protects all of his children.
That's a very important point, and I'm sure Brother Lee will come back to that at some point soon. We're going to come to you, Brother Lee, so hold tight.
I'm enjoying this one.
Thank you.
So yes, my brother. So obviously, we've got Ancestral Voice of the film. We've got part 2 coming out. We've got the book. And what has inspired you? Because long before I heard about the book, there was part 2 to the film. What inspired you to go for the book first and that kind of thing?
Okay, we've been fundraising for close to 3 years now. It hasn't got to, in a sense, the point where we can actually complete the film. The film is currently in post-production. So we've been to South Africa, Brazil, Haiti, and the United States, where we've interviewed a lot of academic scholars as well as traditional priests. That is how far our funds allowed us to go. We did do some GoFundMe campaigns and Indiegogo campaigns, and we've managed to raise some, but then we also had to add our own to make these travels. So now we've got to the stage where we have the narrative is there. The film is actually, you know, we have the film already on a timeline, but I can't just show you a film with talking heads, people just talking at you. We need to, like, some of the concepts are so complex. If I do not show it to you in an animation, I have to be able to explain that concept in a way that even a child can understand. And one of the key ways to do that is to put it in an animation form. So we have to, this is where the post-production comes in. So we need money to finish that process. And the other thing is, we have over 10 hours of interviews. We can't make a 10-hour film. So rather than have all this extra information, in a sense, disappear, because we just have a 2-hour film, I decided that let's compile it and put it in a book, so none of that is lost. You know, you have a book that you can have as a reference point, and then as and when the film comes out, you can enjoy that too.
We're going to give some information later in terms of how people can contribute if they, you know, should they see so moved. You also don't have released a snippet of the film. Called Rituals
for Living.
So you can get that, which is downloadable.
That's right.
For a purchase price as well. So like what I'm highlighting, Kings and Queens, that there are challenges involved in the production of these things, but the brother is finding other creative ways, to bring the message forward. So you got a little short film, and you got a book, and then the film is still in production. So, you know, we give thanks for the overcoming of all those hurdles.
No, thank you, Brother Shakara.
Now, we in our spec, we've talked about your releasing this film, and you touched on it already in terms of releasing it in the climate of the fact that there's an increase in African conversion or adherence to Abrahamic religions.
That's right.
At the same time, some would suggest that there's actually a greater appreciation for African spirituality taking place at the same time as well. What, from your perspective, is the balance of these two realities? How is, and particularly in relation to how is your work being received by various African communities, whether they be in the diaspora, on the continent, in the Americas, whatever?
when the first one was received, I'll tell you what, we had more backlash than should we say appreciation of the film. But in the last 5 years, what we've noticed, because we get quite a lot of film producers come to us, an increase in especially the number of video and film projects surrounding things like the concept of the orishas or the neterus, or the spiritual beings. So there seemed to actually be an increase in the interest in the subject area, particularly our brothers and sisters in the States, because a media outlet, Atlanta Black Star, I believe it's called, they actually run a research and they found that a lot of African Americans are actually pulling away from the Abrahamic faith and starting to look more into our traditions. And even from conversations I have with my fellow Ghanaians, because I'm in obviously alumni groups and whatnot, there's this sense of Christianity especially becoming this what they call prosperity gospel, and it's all become about what you can get materially, if you are there to a certain way. And there's quite a lot of also pastors who are abusing their power. Yes. And that because a pastor is supposed to be a man of, or a special man of God. So if the special man of God can't even live up to his own principles, then over time their own congregation is going to be like, but if it's not working for you and you're supposed to be chosen, then really what's the basis here? So people are beginning to think a lot more. They're not just taking it like, okay, you go, you sit down, you pray, you say these formulas, Hail Mary, Our Father, then boom, your life becomes a magnificent paradise, So people are looking, because it's the one system that has suffered centuries of stigmatization. Look, now, what will most people tell you about Islam to a degree? Oh, they're all terrorists, it's all about terrorism. And that only started in 2011. And look, in that short span, look how it's changed people's minds. So imagine a system that has suffered centuries of it. It's no wonder we don't really know much about it. And even information that comes out about it is kept, because you find them in libraries, but they're not as popular. They don't promote them, because I guess if they keep people in a certain organizations only make money. So it keeps a certain reality alive.
All right, Mbandaka.
I'm worried.
Brother Dalian, now you mentioned earlier that a lot of people are facing persecution through the practice of African spiritual traditions. Can you just illuminate a little bit more on that?
Yes. In Ghana, I can use the places I know the actual evidence. So, for instance, in Ghana, I watched a German-produced documentary once called Demons of Ghana, and they show these, because they have all these prayer camps in rural areas. So some of them are not exactly easily reachable. And they had these rooms where they had manacles, So imagine this now. This is not the early European invasion of Africa. Proper iron manacles where they chain people and beat so-called devils out of them. Now, whether these people die or not, we're none the wiser. Governments don't take any action, because usually some of these organizations are so powerful and so rich that they can actually influence the decisions. And again, there is no legal protection for spiritual adherence, because they are influenced by the belief that what the African traditions is nothing but, again, as I said, in their misguided opinion, devil worship. So somehow they feel they can do God's work by attacking, killing, murdering, or forcing people who practice something different to them to convert to their own way. And this in itself actually also shows that these people actually believe that they're more powerful than the God that they serve. Because if God didn't want this to exist, considering that he, quote unquote, created everything, he can also prevent what he doesn't want to be created. So if we're here in this reality and we're dealing with it, I think people need to live and let live. But we're not getting that. Saudi Arabia every year murders people for what it terms sorcery. Now sorcery, when you go and look into it, is to do with, again, nature-centered practices. So different ways of healing people. Brazil has a lot every year recorded, because Brazil not only has the religious problem, it also has, in a sense, the social problem to deal with, quote and unquote, black people. So the black people's way of worship is like, again, is to be frowned upon. And again, it's something that is jinxing the evangelical, according to them anyway. If they allow these things to continue, somehow we're I don't know, we're polluting the earth. So better that they get rid of us, so it's just blanket Christianity.
Right.
So these are some of the ones I can bring forward. And actually, sorry, also when the Haitian earthquake happened, there was a murder of at least 50 Vodun priests because they claimed that the earthquake had come from them. And these were the messages that evangelical and other religious bodies were sending into Haiti. So they had a mass murder of them, and it then had to get the government to try and put in some form of protection.
So let me get an understanding. You say evangelical, you're talking about Christians.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, so when you hear on the radio and TV or in the newspapers that, you know, you have Muslim extremists.
Yes.
It's not just limited to the Muslims.
At all.
It's very much Christians who are, you know, extremist, what do you call, behavior then?
Oh, totally. And particularly with the evangelicals and the Presbyterians. This is what has been identified. Even UNESCO has a report on it. It's called Witchcraft, a case study in Africa, I believe. And it documents the same thing. And the people who are usually persecuted are actually women and children or old women. You hardly find any men in there. Hardly ever. And let's not also forget, once upon a time, the origin of, you know, I guess mainly Christianity being the Catholic Church in Europe, it was doing the same thing. With this, witches, Salem witch hunt, Spanish Inquisition, all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So what we see now is the same thing is now being repeated, but this time with African faces doing it to mainly other Africans.
Now, I'm sure you're aware, but a lot of the time when you watch these documentaries about, you know, people being chopped up or bodies found, they promote it as if it's traditionalists that are actually doing it. What do you understand about this type of propaganda?
Well, again, it's to increase fear and misunderstanding of the topic, because one of the key principles within African spirituality, as we've identified, is that there's the understanding that the human being is just an extension of God's essence. Yes, your body is just a holding place for that spirit of what we call God, or I'd rather use the word creator, because the God is not a single man. You know, you have the masculine aspect and the feminine aspect, because these are the two things that can create. A man can't create by themselves, you know. So it's if you are a manifestation of that creator, there are two things that some people will use human sacrifice for. They are aware that in our blood is what we call the life force within the African system. Your life force is also connected to your mind. If you have a high life force, we can say you're more intelligent, you have a wider perspective, observational qualities, all the rest of it. So what people, or if it's a traditionalist doing that, they're aware that there is a power that is so strong that they can manifest what they want much quicker. Yes, so it's actually a perversion of the principle, because our traditions are about continuing life. So if you're taking it upon yourself to take another's life so you can have your own personal benefit, what you're doing is you're going against
the principle of the
the principle itself. Yes, so personally, even using Ghana again as an example, we find that most of the people who tend to this kind of human sacrifice for money also go to church on a Sunday, or they go into the mosque too. But they're aware that there is a certain power they can harness. Yes, and then they go and see some of these traditional priests who, again, remember, think of a Buddhist monk. They don't have to work because the community takes care of them. It provides for them. We've been so pulled away from these traditions that most of our priests have to, in a sense, act like businessmen now. Yes, so they will sell to whether it's the lowest bidder or anyone, so long as they can also feed their families. Yes, so some traditionalists I know do it, but also even in Christianity itself, there are others who do it. So I don't think it's just something that only traditionalists have done at all. No, there are other people and other factors to blame too. Yes.
Just last question for now, Brother Dalian.
No problem, Sister.
I know that in our community in general, local, global,
yes,
that a lot of people say, well, African spiritual traditions was useful back then. It doesn't have any purpose or functionality now.
Okay.
What is it you're trying to do by raking up this old tradition?
Yeah, okay. At the risk of going on and on and on, I'll just take one aspect. There's a branch in neuroscience now called neuro-linguistic programming. Now, this is should we say, a science that has correctly identified that we can create changes in you, the individual, through the change in the way you think. And they do this through a range of processes, one of them being thought associations. Yes, so let's say you might be feeling depressed, you go see your counselor, they give you an image of the sun, and then you associate a lot of things with that sun, a lot of happy things. So in time, you keep visualizing, projecting your thoughts onto this until you become, or you get beyond that depression. Yes. Now, in African traditions, we have these archetypes. In ancient Egypt, they call them the Neteru, the forces of nature. In the Yoruba system, we have them known as the Orisha. In the Bantu, they are called Nkisi or Minkisi. Right? Now, again, the first thing within the traditions is one of the main prevailing ideas is that the creator is a form of consciousness. Yes, this is what we call our spirit. That which allows us, you can move your fingers, you can think. That is your actual spirit. That is you, the human being. But we can't see that spirit, because it's immaterial. Yes, it just inhabits this body. So once you start getting into an African spiritual life, you start to realize that every experience, every person that you meet plays a role in your life journey, because you're here to work towards a destiny. Yes, so once you start getting into the practices, whether it's libation or setting up an ancestral shrine in particular, you're able to access memories, going back however many generations. And again, science is only now proven that. Emory University School of Medicine, they claim they've discovered that in our DNA you have genetic markers, right, that transmits the traits, the phobias, the behavior patterns of your ancestors. They are just saying that they've been able to prove it now. But this is something that Africans have been talking forever since. That's what ancestral communication is about. But we have our own system of bringing forth that communication. And again, as I said, this could be through libation. This could be
somebody would say, well, for what purpose? Why do you want to know what's going on at 500 million years ago?
Oh,
your ancestors were thinking or doing.
For you to identify your purpose for being here, for you to know why you, the individual, has manifested on this plane, so that you can become the very best of yourself. Because remember, you're here to remember who you are. In the Western idea, we're walking towards a destiny. But in African traditions, your destiny is already something your spirit has agreed on before taking on this body. So by doing these processes, it gives you, it's a memory bank you access. And that helps you to bring out the best that you possibly can. And I'll use the example that Brother Shakara mentioned earlier. We first kept it with the online funding, trying to raise money. Wasn't coming in. We're struggling. So we had to sit down and say, so what are we going to do? Let's put it to our ritual, whether it's our weekly Sunday ritual for the family or for our own individual prayers in the morning. Then all of a sudden, extra ideas start popping up. And then that's when we realized, oh, hold on a minute. We have actual information here that we could compile into a book. Yes. Then we realized, okay, we could even release the rituals for living segment. You get guided because your mind is your direct connection to God, because your mind is God. So these practices help you access the creator within you. that's how useful it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Tendai Mori.
Tendai Mori says, thank you for that good question.
Yeah, man. You're in tune to Africa
part.
Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio. Brother Dalian Adofo, author of Ancestral Voices, Spirit is Eternal, is dropping the knowledge right here, Kings and Queens, dropping the knowledge in a way that I'm not going to say only he can, Kings and Queens, you know what I mean? And in Big It Up Dalian, we do want to big up once again the Queen. He's mentioned, he's made reference to his wife a number of times, but big up Sister Verona, as I'm sure she's listening, and all the children of the Adofo household. And also, we want to big up our brother Robin Walker, the Black History man, who, just in case brothers and sisters are not aware, is the publisher of Ancestral Voices, Spirit is Eternal. So we want to make it clear, Kings and Queens, that this is not just an example of African spiritual excellence, but an example of black group economics very much in action, Kings and Queens. Yeah,
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? We have an economy where various skills and institutions are able to come together to produce what we need for our people. And so Ancestral Voices has partnered with Reclaw Publishing to publish this particular book, Kings and Queens. Our brother Robin Walker, the Black History man, we salute you, brother. Tenamwari.
Galaxy, you're my shining star. Please don't go away. Please don't go away. Please don't go away. The only de-brainwashing station.
Tenamwari, Kings and Queens, that was a Spirit of the Dead taken from the classic film Sankofa, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, Kings and Queens. And more information and announcements on that coming soon. Stay tuned, but there will be special events taking place in London and throughout the UK in relation to the 20th anniversary of the classic film Sankofa. If you have not seen Sankofa, correct that in your life right after this program. At 10 o'clock, go and search for that film and watch it. Brother Leader Mbandaka,
Tenamwari.
So you're an African spiritualist of some 30 odd years standing. Similar story to Brother Dalian, except for your journey begins in Jamaica. I can say that because I know a bit about you, Brother Leader. Just a little bit.
Where did you get that information?
No idea. From my ancestors, you know what I mean?
Been checking up on me.
Yeah, you know. But obviously raised in the Christian church. Which denomination? So I know Mama's a Baptist.
Yes.
And what was great grandma?
Disciples of Christ.
Disciples of Christ.
Yes.
Okay.
Very close to Baptist.
Right. Okay.
But the denomination is named the Disciples of Christ.
And you know, oftentimes Baptist in the Caribbean is different.
Torrington Christian Church.
All right, we're going into some deep history now. All right, so all the biographers can get your pen and paper ready. All right, but obviously coming out of the church, into African spirituality. First of all, in terms of that journey as an African from the diaspora, reclaiming those traditions, what is that journey like? From that, now it's a big question, but yeah, if you understand what I'm trying to say,
yes.
How does that journey go from that perspective?
Tenamwari. Yes, it's a question that is always difficult to answer because I've grown into the realization that that journey started perhaps from the day I was born.
Right.
Without me realizing it, you know. Certainly my grandmother had a tremendous impact on my spiritual orientation, because so much about the way she expressed her spirituality, notwithstanding the Christian vessel in which she was colonized to express her spirituality. There were African elements. Not that I was aware of that at the time, but I'm now able to reflect back on some of the things that she used to do. Like, for instance, you know, at nights, you know, it was like there was a sacred, around the house, there was a sort of sacred spirit around the house. You couldn't just throw water outside because, you know, it was considered disrespectful to just throw water outside. I've grown into a realization that it is the consciousness that the ancestors were gathered around the house at night and were protecting the homes. They would call it them other one. Them, you know,
those other ones.
Those other ones. You know, them other one.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
My grandfather would open a bottle of drink and he would pour, he would pour, I mean, like him rum, he would pour a bit in the corner. Yeah, and he would say, for them other one. Sometimes he never even say anything. Just pour it.
That's right.
Yeah. And those things stick in your mind. Yeah. But one of the most powerful things, and I could share a lot of different experiences, you know, in relation to my grandmother. When she prayed, she got into spirit. She would say utterances that you would not understand in English. I would not understand what that was about. They call it speaking in tongues. We come now to learn that that was connecting with our ancestral tongue. Yeah. I remember when I was 12 years old, and this is something that happened, I didn't know at the time, because we were not allowed to talk about it. But when I was 12 years old, my grandmother took me to a Obia man.
What?
Obia man. Obia man. She didn't say she was taking me to a Obia man.
Yeah, half the listeners them turn off them radio right now.
No. Obia man. Obia man. All right.
Yeah.
But she didn't tell me where she was taking me.
Right.
Yeah. She just said, "Come with me." Yeah, put on your clothes, come with me. And she took me to this man. She didn't say who he was. She didn't say why she was taking me to him. Yeah. And he was an old man, I remember very well, old man, but he had a strong voice. You know, strong hands, warm hands. And he, you know, what he did was got me to, he had a deck of cards, got me to cut the deck, he shuffled it, did some reading. I didn't know what was going on. Never experienced anything like that before. And then he was speaking mainly with my grandmother. All right? And to cut a long story short, what he was saying to my grandmother then, I have been experiencing in my life. What she was saying to her then, which I didn't understand about my future. I have been experiencing that in my life, and I've been able to reflect back on that experience at 12 years old, that and understand what was going on there, right? Anyway, that whole experience finished or culminated in a spiritual bath. Yeah, again, never experienced anything like that before. But what I do remember is the scent of the oils and the herbs that were put in the bath. I remember that strong smell, and it was a pleasant smell as well. I loved it. Yeah, and he gave me a thorough bath from the crown of my head to the sole of my feet. Yeah, because I remember him blessing me and purging me from the crown of your head to the sole of your feet. I remember those words, and those are words that my grandmother used to use as well. So I remember those words very, very well. Okay, and then he also gave me a psalm. You know, you know, there have to be some biblical intrusion because of the colonial experience. Yeah, he gave me a psalm.
Different tools, you know.
All right, which I had to recite several times every day. Yeah, and that had a tremendous impact on me. And I never understood, and I was not allowed to discuss it with anybody, including my siblings. So I did not know that my siblings had also gone through it. Had no idea. Because we were disciplined. If your grandmother told you not to discuss it, you didn't discuss it. Yeah? And it wasn't until we became adults that I learned that my brother and sister went through the same thing, and some of my cousins went through the same thing, and we did not know that each one of us had gone through it. Yeah?
Interesting. All right. So, well, really, we come forward now. Now you're the spiritual leader of an African-centered spiritual organization,
Yes.
the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of, again, coming back to our show synopsis, in terms of doing that in a reality whereby most of us are engaged in Abrahamic religions, and as Brother Dalian was saying earlier, the monopoly on respect, dignity is applied to those religions. And it seems as though more of us are becoming involved in those religions. Yeah. What has been the climate or the challenges that as you would see in terms of discarding Abrahamic religions, yeah, and returning to the way, so to speak, as you know, your journey has suggested? What have been the primary challenges towards one, first of all, restoring our people the dignity to African spirituality,
Yeah.
and two, engaging our people in terms of the negative perceptions. You know,
Well, I think you've almost answered the question in the way you framed it, you know, because that is the biggest challenge,
Right.
you know, to bring our people along with us, to awaken our people's consciousness to the glory of Africanness, which is at its most powerful, at its most awesome, grounded in our African spirituality, grounded in our African traditions. Of course, the challenge is on the level of making that transformation and getting the family to understand why you're making that transformation, why you're walking away from the Christian religion, why you're walking away from the Christian church that they raised you in, and that they're so convinced is so absolute a prerequisite for the salvation of your soul. You understand what I'm saying? And it's having to well, at first, to be honest with you, I was quite aggressive in standing firm. You know, I didn't have a problem myself making that transformation. Once my conscious mind connected with my inner soul, and I believe that from childhood, my inner soul was searching for Africa, was searching for Africanness, was searching for that revelation, that African revelation, that African spiritual revelation. Once my conscious mind caught up with that journey, that I'm sure started from childhood, then it was not difficult for me to make that transformation. The battle was convincing members of my family, explaining things to members of my family, and making them comfortable with it.
So supplementary question, because and this will be my last one before we open up the lines, okay, so do stay tuned. But in relation to the fact that, because when obviously Alkebu-Lan started in 1987, yeah, there was no ancestral voices. There was no DVD, let's say, right at the time there, but there was no ancestral voices where you can put on a VHS.
My beloved brother, if my mathematics is correct, would have been about 8 years old.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? You know,
30 years,
right.
I think.
Yeah,
and I was 2, right? Or I wasn't even 2 yet, right? What's it called? So, yeah, but my point is that all this abundance of information was not about at that time. Yeah, there was no book written by a brother like Dalian where you can, you know what I'm saying, take in all this information. So how is it that the members of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement gained knowledge about African spirituality in that context? 1. 2, what was the importance of manifesting that in an institution that called Shamira, which is our monthly worship?
Tenai. Short answer, because we want to open the line soon, right? I think it had to do with, you know, when we came on Liberation, what we call Liberation Road, much of the focus was on learning about, it was very politically orientated, all right? And very intellectually orientated from the point of view of study groups. There were a lot of study groups around at the time, a lot of political discussions at the time. And, you know, I'll give thanks and praises at the time. We also had what was my university, which was we used to call Head Start Sunday meetings, right? The Pan-African Congress movement that used to operate from 25 West Green Road. Downstairs was the bookshop, Head Start Books and Crafts, and upstairs the organization used to operate from you know, the rooms upstairs. And I used to go to those Sunday meetings. And it was from those Sunday meetings that, you know, the various topics were discussed on the agenda, and one of the topics would be African spirituality and culture. Yeah, and that's what switched on the light for me, that there was something called African spirituality. Yes. Now, I'm a very spiritual person. At the time, I was still in the Christian religion in some way, shape, or form. I'd grown uneasy with it for many reasons, slavery being one of the reasons, and the role that the Christian church played in the enslavement of our people is something that did not rest with me. And I remember I used to have discussions with the chaplain of my school, the junior chaplain, well, senior chaplain and junior chaplain, and the junior chaplain used to teach me religious education. And I used to really quiz him about, how you reconcile Christianity with the role that the Christian church played in the enslavement of our people. Because and I didn't mention my uncle Sid, your granduncle, and the role he played. He was a Pan-Africanist, and he played a big role. And he embraced Rastafari. I must also mention Rastafari and how Rastafari represented African spirituality. So that I could witness that element of that expression of African spirituality. Of course, at the time, I did not understand that was what it was. So all of that culminated in the discussions that used to take place at Head Start Books and Crafts. And when I had the opportunity now to learn about African spirituality and what African spirituality was, then I started to really assiduously look, eagerly into developing an understanding. Once I had started to develop that understanding, then I realized, as our brother Dalian has been saying to us, that this is not something to be intellectualized. This is not something to just study and process it intellectually, but it's something to be lived. It's something that should permeate every single aspect of our lives, individually and collectively. I understood that African spirituality was a binding force for family, community, and nations. Yeah, it is not just an individualized pursuit. Okay, the individuality occurs within the context of the collectivity. Yeah, and so that was what drove me and others who I was on the road with at the time to establish the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement as a liberation movement based upon an African-centered spiritual cultural philosophy, which we call Alkebu-Lan Livity, which means living according to the divine teachings and traditions of our mother culture. So that's our pursuit, to live according to the divine teachings and traditions of our mother culture. And it has been a learning process since then. It continues to be a learning process even as we speak today. We've learned a lot over the last 30 years, but we realize the more we learn, the more we have to learn.
Yes, indeed. All right. Tell our kings and queens, I'm going to open the lines now. Brother Leader and Brother Dalian are waiting for your calls. The numbers are 0207 193 0174. You can also call on 07923 334 515. You can text now, or you can call on 07399 359 614. I warn you though, Brother Dalian and Brother Leader, it's one of them shows where you're dropping so much knowledge here. Every now and then we have a show whereby the listeners are just listening. It's one of them things, and I get the impression that this might be one of them, but we'll see. They might prove me wrong. It happens,
I can fully understand that, because as Brother Dalian was speaking, I
was just
relaxing. I kind of felt redundant.
I just
felt it's just so wonderful. Our brother is a younger brother than myself, and I'm just so inspired when I see the younger generation, and especially as you come from the motherland. And you have arrested this consciousness at a relatively early stage, of your life. You said, you started to question certain things at a relatively early age. That inspires me a great deal.
Yes, sir. All right, give thanks. The love is definitely real, kings and queens. Sorry, I'm going to come to you, but we've just got an announcement so you don't get missed out. But we do want to invite brothers and sisters down to our homeschooling session on this our next normal session. Should I say, which at which the subject is homeschooling, the how-to guide to black excellence, kings and queens. Homeschooling, the how-to guide to black excellence. We will be given the how-to guide for how to develop African-centered homeschooling programs, not just among families, but among collectives of families. This Friday, the 30th of September 2016 at Mama Africa Culture Shop, 282 High Road, Leighton, E10 5PW. Admission is £3. If you're under 21, it's absolutely free, and the program starts at 7 p.m. Our speaker will be Brother Leader Mbandaka. One of the many things that African spirituality does have an influence on is how we educate ourselves, our children, and each other. So we use African spirituality to develop African-centered education, an in-depth exploration of the practical steps for taking the education of our children into our own hands. Our panel will include experts from the Ma'at Academy, Homeschooling Cooperative, and the Alkebu-Lan Academy of Excellence, the Saturday School, kings and queens, and other independent educators. So do come down on Friday, the 30th of September, this coming Friday, at Mama Africa Culture Shop. You were just saying something, Brother Dalian, and was he prepared to
yes, no, I was going to point out what Brother Leader Mbandaka said about his grandma and how she was instrumental in the awakening of his consciousness, or attuning his consciousness to that creator consciousness within. Because I can trace a similar experience with my grandma, and it was more so on the eve of her passing. And interestingly enough, one of the main speakers in the documentary, Professor James Smalls, you know, quite well known for his work in Pan-Africanism, also relate for me his journey and how again it also came via his grandma on the eve of her passing. So it's almost like a transference of energy, a transference of consciousness. So I just wanted to add that to that, because I'm finding that you had me rather jealous a couple of years ago, Brother Dalian, because Brother James Small came over here, and the only question he wanted to know was, where's Dalian? I'm like, come on, man, me and you reasoning from a long time. What I'm saying, we are doing. What he wants to know is, where's Dalian? Anyway, we got a caller on the line.
Here we have Brother Shabaka. Tendai Mori, greetings and welcome. Brother Shabaka, how would you like to join the discussion this evening, brothers and sisters? It's African spirituality. How do we return to the way?
Well, Tendai Mori, I would thank the guests in the studio, Brother Dalian, Brother Leader. I just want to say that this is a really vital subject to do. Like, what happened is, we as a people have been disenfranchised from our culture, our spirituality, in order for other people to take advantage of us. Okay, and that's what they are doing.
Yeah.
It has been demonized because they want us to take on their way of life. We have to return to the way. This is the only way to return to the way, to make us, to bring us to our greatness as a collective race together. And that's why they demonize it so much. So if we don't do it, then we're disenfranchised from each other, from everybody else. Everybody else is taking advantage of us, taking our land, taking everything, our resources, while we're just waiting for God. But waiting for Allah to do something, or waiting for God, whatever. Well, everything what we should be doing, we're not doing, because we're not practicing our spirituality. And I would advise everybody who is conscious to deal with African spirituality, and not just say it. They say, oh, will I do libation, or listen to a radio program and say, yeah, I'm conscious. No, you have to be in it. You have to live it. You have to be part of it in order for you and your mindset to change, to deal with your brothers and sisters in a respectful way all the time. And this is the only way to do it. So I say, give thanks for the program, and I'm
Give thanks for that. You can do the same, kings and queens. 0207 193 0174. Alternatively, 07923 334 515. You can also text or call on 07399 359 614. Brother Dalian and Brother Leader Mbandaka are most definitely awaiting your call. We have another caller on the line. Name? You have a name for this caller?
Yeah, Brother Ade.
Greetings, Brother Ade.
Are you there?
Brother Ade, it's been a while, you know.
Yeah, are you okay there, everybody?
Yes, sir, we are well.
We're well, my brother.
Yeah, but what? I agree with everything that the gentleman said there. But I mean, he mentioned about Brazil coming there. All the religion that he mentioned there, spirituality, all fall under the name of Ogun, which is in Brazil, which in the northeast part of Brazil, that thousands a year. That is the language, that is the religion which is worship. And you have to go into Cuba, as far as there's Cuba as well. And talking to Sister Kai mentioned about whether he's president, to remember things of 500 years ago. The museum that was opened in Washington the other day is actually modeled on the Yoruba artifacts. Modeled on the Yoruba artifacts under the Orishas from the Oyo Empire. I'm not sure whether you're aware of the museum on Saturday.
Yes, we are aware, Brother Ade.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Brother Ade, for that. Our kings and queens, apologies, some technicals in the studio right there. Yes, we shall be working it out right about now, but give thanks to Brother Ade for that particular call right there. More work, more investigation to be done on the opening of the Museum of African American History in the United States of America. Stay tuned, we'll be back after this brief intermission.
Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, the only de-brainwashing station.
Tanamwara Kings and Queens, you're tuned to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only de-brainwashing station. The lines are most definitely very open. Brother Dalian and Brother Leader Mbandaka are in the studio, and the subject is African spirituality. How do we return to the way, Kings and Queens? African spirituality, how do we return to the way? Our special guest, Brother Dalian Adofo, has written a book on African spirituality entitled Ancestral Voices, Spirit is Eternal. Brother Dalian, give our brothers and sisters the website that they can contact you on.
Yes, our website is www.ancestralvoices.co.uk. So ancestral and voices, all one word, .co.uk. On our website you can trace our whole journey. We have articles, we have short video clips that you can it'll be a good starting point for you to branch out, because one of the things we do is not only in a sense try and keep it like we're the first or ever to do this. You find links to be other publications, other films, other videos. We have a Facebook page which is very active. There's a lot of discussions, contributions that go on there. We have a suggested book reading list on there as well. So anyone that's interested in at least even just getting a starting point in there, just go in there and have a look. Books from Dr. Mbandaka down to the Catholic priest who wrote possibly one of the most fantastic works on African spirituality, where his conclusion is that Africans understand metaphysics.
Is that John Mbiti?
No, he's actually a European. His name is Father Temples. The book is called Bantu Philosophy. Yes, and his conclusion in there was that Africans have a higher understanding of metaphysics, and that him as a Catholic priest actually had nothing to teach them.
Interesting, very interesting.
So go have a look, have a read.
And Ancestral Voices is how much?
The book,
yes.
£23 retailing online. Yes.
So get that right. That's very reasonable, Kings and Queens, for the wealth of knowledge and information that you're going to get. I have browsed the table of context, and it's a whole heap going on there. And this is probably the most. I'm not saying this. I've come across a number of different literature, but I would from what I've seen, this is probably the closest thing that we get to a comprehensive text on African spirituality. I don't think a book like it exists, and I'm an African spiritualist, 31 years in the making.
Yes.
So that's a very serious achievement. So we hail you for that, my brother.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Tenamwari. Brother Leader, now hold on a moment. Brother Leader. Yes. One moment.
Ten of our kings and queens. 0307 193 0174. Alternatively, 07923 334 515. Those are the numbers to call. We are asking the question, African spirituality, how do we return to the way? Why is there increasing global engagement in Christianity and Islam? If you notice, we focus the conversation more on African spirituality, but we do need to answer that question as well. Can African civilization, culture and self-respect be reconciled with adherence to Abrahamic religions? Log that question, my guest, because I'm going to be coming to you both on that in a second. Can gatherings like Shamira, which is being reinitiated by the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement publicly on this coming Sunday, the 2nd of October, and we do invite Brother Adofo, Brother Dalian, and I was going to say the Adofo family to come down and join us for our inaugural reopening of our public, our community Shamira, from the unconscious level to the conscious level. Is it now too late for Africans to return to the way? We have a caller on the line.
Tonight,
we have Brother Simba. Is it too late for Africans to return to the way?
I think this is the right time for Africans to return to the way, and I think this is a very important show, a very powerful show. I think over the years, we've done a lot by way of dissecting what we're referring to as Abrahamic religions, and I think what we need to do now is do more of showing our own traditional religion, so the younger generations coming up not only understand that these Abrahamic religions are not for us, but understand what is for us and how we worship as a people. Now, why this is also an important show is because I believe that the mistake that we are making at the moment is we are doing our best to incorporate the Abrahamic religions into our African spirituality, if that makes sense. It's that we don't want to let go.
Okay.
Rather than dashing away the religion completely, we look to validate what we're doing through references to European and the Arab religions. And it frustrates me a lot.
Sorry, Brother Simba, you're going to have to land soon. Your mic, the phone is not great. So I don't know if you need to take it off a loudspeaker or position yourself, but continue.
Up on the roof.
Yes.
Yes.
Or come out to the bunker.
I think one of the examples that is most easy for me to use is when certain sections of Rastafari, where in the past never used to reference the Bible or even used to ban Bible. Now they're using the Bible to validate the divinity of Dalian. Certain African spiritual orders who before never used to refer to certain Arabic or European traditions or things like that are now using these things to validate. And it's very confusing for the generation to come. And I think what we need to do is to fully dash away the Abrahamic religions completely, because sometimes we say that they were taken from us as African people, and there is still some African essence in there. And if that is the case, then let's deal with the African essence from the source of the African essence, rather than trying to use the Bible or the Quran or the Torah and trying to draw the Africanness from that. Well, let's go back to the source. When you say return to the way, let's fully return to the way, and that's with the religions completely. 10 hours.
10 hours. Give thanks to that Brother Simba. You know, he's raised an interesting point, and I think he's come with that Alkebu-Lan fundamentalist ideal right there, where we just dash for everything European and Arabic. And Arabic, yes, indeed. But he's made an interesting point, though, and there's two sides to that point. Yeah, the one is, as Brother Dalian was saying earlier, in terms of the dignity that is afforded to us in Abrahamic religions. And so even when we're trying to come back to ourselves in terms of our spiritual practices, there's a tendency to try and either hold on or validate through. So what happens is, and I think sometimes that seems to happen in the sense of how our perception of the Creator becomes Abrahamic. Even if we're saying Eledumare, we have a Abrahamic perception of the Creator. The other one is that we have brothers and sisters who are in different faiths, who have an African consciousness, but not necessarily manifesting it in terms of African spirituality, that now begin to accuse us of attacking their religion when we begin to say, well, this is not our thing, or this religion has enslaved us. We should let go of it because it's destructive to us, who we are, or whatever. Log that, because there's another caller in the line. I'm going to get you to answer to those points.
Yeah, Brother Mario. Tendamore, Brother Mario. How would you like to join the discussion?
Tendamore, family.
Tendamore, Brother Mario.
Tendamore, Brother Mario.
Pleasure to hear your voice.
Great to hear from you.
I know you all don't hear from me, but I'm never far.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Listen, I really wish to commend everyone
on the program. Commend the guest, the host, and certainly the guest. You know, Tanamwari, brother leader.
Tanamwari, brother Mario.
Yes. Sister Kai. Yeah, brother Mbandaka, brother Fatwa.
Yes, sir.
And yeah. Yes, you know, it's funny how just as we're struggling with these, we're caught like flies in these Abrahamic belief systems, and some of us, are really caught out, and we even kill each other just to defend them. We have Europeans actually moving in, and however they feel that they're doing so, taking advantage of African traditions. I know that not too long ago, maybe sometime last year or so, I heard about this voodoo ceremony that was happening in London. I said, let me just check this out. And then lo and behold, it was being held by some Europeans.
Yes, that happens, yes.
Oh, God.
And so, but I think on another tip, it just feels like as if the veil is coming off, at least some of our eyes, that it's open season, certainly on us, everywhere, but in some places very starkly and openly, as in the U.S., where Africans just being picked off. It just seems we need to acknowledge where our strength is. And there's no other place where our strength resides as strongly as in our spirituality, in our African spirituality. And to me, there's no more assured place where we can go and pull ourselves together than through getting to know, acquainting ourselves with our African spirituality. Mm-hmm. And that's why I commend programs such as this program today, and the work that the Dalian is doing, and the work, of course, that the Alkebu Society has been championing for ages. So keep it up.
Thank you very much, my brother.
Give thanks, Brother Mario.
All right. Brother Mario raises another very interesting point. You know, that we've got Europeans in Africa claiming African identity. And how part of that, it's like a recolonization in a different form, because they're buying themselves into our spiritual traditions at the same time as well. I don't know. We've got to come back. This needs a whole series. I've been campaigning for this series, but a series.
An elder from the southern part of Africa taught me this. He said, the white man, having dominated us in our oppression, will seek to control us in our liberation. And he explained that they'll infiltrate every element of our liberation movement, and will even appear to be our liberators. He'll become our liberators, so that he will be in control of our liberation process. So when we have Europeans simulating themselves, or assimilating or appear to assimilate into our spiritual systems, and we welcome them in our spiritual systems, I'm saying that spells serious danger. Serious danger for us.
But Brother Leader, there are those that feel that African spiritual traditions spirituality is one. It's open to everybody. I mean, should we be colonizing it then? Isn't that doing the same as others?
African spirituality is African people expressing our own sense of our divinity, our relationship with the divine creator of the universe, from within and without. The European experience is a completely different experience. Not only that, we are at war with Europeans. So we cannot be assimilating with Europeans on the spiritual realm when we are at war with them and they are wiping us out. They are the ones who have demonized our spirituality. That's an act of war.
All right.
True indeed.
That is an act of war.
Yes.
We have Brother Ade. Brother Ade, I'm going to ask you for 1 minute, please. Go ahead. Tendai Mori.
How you doing, Sister Kai? You just
I'm good, my brother. Tendai Mori.
Yeah, I mean, you make a statement that which I don't necessarily agree with. This African spirituality, is based on sworn secrecy. A lot of it, there's an element of secrecy there. So it doesn't, whether it's a real child from the Oyo Empire. I mean, there is a lot of Babalawo This is what we call that. Babalawo is a sex. Yeah? And a lot of it is sworn in secrecies, where you see no evil and you hear no evil and you do no evil. Only if the evil comes onto you, then you got everything to defend yourself.
Okay.
And then mention about, what Mbandaka mentioned about the people who allow the Europeans. We've got the thing to warn all the evil things that, the come to develop on us. We've got it, but I don't know why we have to use it. Anyway, I'll leave it to that then. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Brother Ade. Do you know, Brother Ade raised another interesting point. Yeah, I'm going to ask you both a question to supplement. When I was in Ghana, I remember Mambo Ama, Voodoo priestess, saying that if you go to Haiti and you would swear that voodoo is not present there unless you understand voodoo, then you start to see it everywhere. Yeah, and I had a similar experience in Ghana. Because the Christianity is intense. I was only in Accra, right? But it's everywhere. It's visible, yeah. But it's only because I was shout out to our Jangi family. I'm sure some of them are listening. But I was with my brethren Bonchi, and he was able to show me where in Ga tradition you have Wolome, which is the priest or priestess, and so I was able to walk, and that he would identify the house of the Wolome or wherever it was. So unless you know, you won't pick it up. But Jesus is everywhere, and white Jesus at that. But Brother Ade talks about this secrecy. Another one of our Jangi sisters, Najele, says that a lot of the time it's difficult to get information because there's a lot of secrecy. Yeah, a lot of the things that elders say they can't tell you. How do we kind of overcome that barrier of the elements of our tradition that are secret? That are subject to initiation. 1, 2. What is the importance of us of this work that like what Brother Dalian is doing in terms of the intellectual tradition and exploration of African spirituality? Yeah, is it necessary? Why is it important to delve in and study the thing on that level, if that makes sense, rather than just exist in it, if that makes sense? Tenamwari.
Okay, Brother Shakara, I've been given permission by Brother Mbandaka.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because,
yes, sir.
as the elder here,
yes, sir.
He has
yes,
that,
sir.
should I say, right of way first.
Yes, sir.
So
yes,
I have
sir.
his permission to go ahead and
Ashe,
proceed to that.
Ashe.
Yes. Now that question is very important, and what you're saying, how do we go about the secrecy?
Yes.
You see, there is deep power
yes.
in the traditions. Obviously
yes.
myself. And I'm even only partially initiated into some systems.
Right.
I haven't gone there, should we say, the full hog.
Okay.
Yet. Now, if
we'll come back to that.
If you're going to willingly just give that to any and everybody, what you're going to end up with people who don't actually understand what you're dealing with.
Right.
Yes,
right,
and
right.
will only end up most likely using it for something that is to the detriment of the whole community at large.
Right.
So, for me personally, I think that element of secrecy is there for you to show your commitment to the way.
Right.
You have to go on that journey and show that you're worthy of that information.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
it's not just it's not a library. You go, you pick up a book, you read it. Okay, yeah,
and you're finished.
Yes, because as I said, it's a totality.
Yes.
It not only involves your body, mind, but your soul.
Yes.
So being given a piece of information that, for instance, you can use to, I don't know, maybe manifest cash no end, you even end up having no appreciation for that cash you're getting, because after a while it becomes like a trick.
Yes.
You know, okay, if I go recite this, do this over here, this is what I'm ending up with, because I've put that energy out to the universe and it's coming back. So it's needed. You first remember, we need to develop our character. Is as you develop that character is how you become or attune to that creator or God consciousness.
So what you're saying, we need to respect the initiation systems.
Of course.
And right, okay.
Of course.
All right.
We need to be clear about what we mean by when we say African spirituality. It's a contradiction in terms. If we say African spirituality and then we say it's a universal concept, anyone can be a part of this. Then it's no longer African spirituality.
True indeed.
It's just spirituality. You've neutralized it.
Right.
True indeed.
Yeah, it's the Africanness that
makes
gives it
particular and political, as Dalian was
That's
saying.
right. It particularizes it. It makes it indigenous.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it relates specifically to the historical experience of our people. It becomes also a viable mechanism of warfare.
Right.
Yeah, because we have to use our spirituality to fight this war as well.
Right.
It's essential.
Definitely.
All
right, I'm going to ask one last question that applies to both of you. It relates to something that Brother Dalian just said in terms of African spirituality as this broad expression with many different expressions within it. Yeah, what that Tendai Mwari or whatever? What are there particular traditions that you both have adhered to? And if so, why? What has brought you to that point? If that makes sense.
That's after we hear from Sister
Yes,
Vashti,
yes,
our
yes.
last caller. Tendai Mwari, Sister Vashti, how would you like to join the discussion?
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
Discussion. I was at a meeting. I'm just calling in to say, Dalian, thank you very much for being part of our Africans on Film Festival. I didn't get to see you on the day. We were very busy.
Yes.
And you screened your film and had a Q&A.
Yes, thank you for having me.
The Dinka Arts Collective. So me and Congo just want to say thank you. Personally. And I was listening again for this conversation that you're having. So I was at a meeting, didn't get to hear it all. And sorry to get to meet on the day, but I'm just very glad that you're in the studio today talking about African spirituality.
Thank you too for your call.
Just thank you so much.
All right, that was Sister Vashti of the Adinkra Arts Collective, Kings and Queens. Check out herself and Brother Kunga Dread, who are doing fantastic work in terms of bringing our African story to us through the moving image. So yeah, last question before we get closing words, Brother Leader, Brother Dalian, in terms of how, because obviously we've got the broad expression, we have the broad understanding, but when you don't say all the names of the deity when you go to the shrine, if that makes sense, or your altar or whatever. So how is it that you've began to particularize your expression of African spirituality? Dalian, go ahead.
Yes, for me personally, Brother Shakara, you see, the starting point again, and this is why this book has the outlook that it does, because all previous writers localize it.
Yes.
So, whether you're looking at only just the Ifa system in Nigeria or the Akan or the Kemetic spirituality, and in doing so, it separates it from that, should we say, wider body that it was. You see, again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that what our research is inviting scholars and researchers to do is to go back and look at this narrative of Africans being these different communities that always live together and were separate and were at warfare, because their highest form of thought, it's the same principles we find there. So for me, as an Asante or in the larger collective of the Akan, I do not actually see a conflict between me having my clay pot, with the extra bits in there, and the particular days that I go and do my reverence there, with what I will do for my Ogun shrine, which I also have. Because I know it comes from one ancestral mind. That separation has come about, obviously, with the rise of a particular culture. Yes, and they enforcing, because they only see things in separation, in boxes, in chunks. You see it in the education system. Whereas within our system, again, the education is related to the medicine. That medicine is related to how you speak to the Creator in all its immensity. Yes, it's also how you treat your fellow man, because you're an expression of God, Brother Shakara. So is Brother Leader, so is Sister Kai. So if I really want to show that I respect God, I first have to show it in how I treat the three of us sitting here.
Brother Leader, how do we begin to particularize our
Tendai Mwari, you'll be familiar with the expression, Brother Shakara, African Alkebu-Lan liberty is a synthesis of all the authentic teachings and traditions of our mother culture, or of the motherland. So that we have always sought to embrace the spiritual expressions across the African continent, which enriches all of us. As you know, Shekanta Diop wrote the book Cultural Unity of Black Africa, which he shows the common thread that underpin all the cultures of Africa. We have Theophile Obenga, who again showed that there are 8 or so language systems on the African continent.
Kwesi Pra's
and Baba Kwesi Pra has also developed on the work that Theophile Obenga started many years ago, and has taken it on another level. And of course, the language of a people is the expression of the people's soul, the expression of the people's spirit. So that indicates that we are one people. So our spirituality may have its varieties of expression, but its essence is one. It is one essence, And within the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, we use the Shona language primarily, not exclusively, but primarily we use the Shona language to express our faith. That's our spiritual language. And that was because in the early days of the movement, we had a member who was a Shona from Zimbabwe. And so it was convenient, that we use Shona because we had a Shona-speaking person among us. And that also really connected, because the language is very important in expressing our spirituality. So that is why we're kind of Shona orientated in the spiritual language that we use. But as you know, we embrace all aspects. We embrace the Ifa system. We embrace the Ashanti, the Akan system, the Kemetian system. All of it is part of the expression of African spirituality. And of course, we have retentions of African spirituality in the Caribbean. We have it in the Americas, and all of it is important.
So what I hear you both saying in terms of the conscious. One of the questions is, can gatherings like Shamira help to bring us from the unconscious to the conscious? I hear you both saying that you consciously bring together different aspects of the tradition. So you merge the Shona with the Kemetic, or the Akan with the Ifa, and that's a conscious choice. Like, you know what I'm saying, to do that. So that's interesting. We're going to take closing words now. So we've got 2 minutes to the end of the show, so you got a minute each.
Okay. Yes. All I can add to that, just to extend that discussion, is again the earth in its vastness, and as you just said, Brother Leader Mbandaka, about the retention in the wider diaspora. So for instance, within Santeria, they've identified a Orisha that they name Agayu, which is to do with the volcano. Right. Now, if you go into Yoruba land, there's no volcano. So you see, again, what it shows us that, in a sense, the Creator is ever present in so many different forms. So the localized expression, in my opinion, that it just reflects what the people have been exposed to in that environment or experience. But it's not exclusive, at all. It's rather a broadening of it.
Right.
Tenai Mwari. Quickly, in the Akan tradition, there's an expression, Sankofa Bibi Woho. Sankofa Bibi Woho. Go back and fetch it. Go back and claim. There's something of value there. And we have to understand that there's something of deep value in our spiritual cultural traditions. We are the fruit of the great African tree. And the fruit is nothing without the root. This is why we have to go back and fetch. We have to connect with the root. This is why African spirituality and the ancient ways of our ancestors, because that represents the root. We have to connect with that, because if we are severed from that, we die. And in the words of Baba Yusuf Ben Yochanan, he says, religion is a deification of a people's culture. Therefore, religion empowers the people in whose culture the religion is expressed. So if we are practicing religions that are not of our African spiritual root, then we are empowering the people in whose culture the religion is expressed, who are alien, and if they are our oppressors, we are empowering them to oppress us. So I close with the words of the most eminent prophet and king, as I always do, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey: unite, organize now or perish. Rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. Rumbidzokuna Mwariye Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. Tendai
Mwari, kings and queens. This has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, and undoubtedly, I can say, one of my favorite shows ever in the history of Africa Speaks. Once again, last and finally, we invite you down to Shamira, African Centered Worship, every first Sunday of the month at Chestnut Community Centre, 280 St. Anne's Road, N15 5BN. And brother SG Vibes, please allow me a minute to let Brother Dalian announce the details of his launch. I forgot to do that earlier. That's important. Sorry, Brother SG Vibes.
So the book launch itself is on the 6th and the 7th of October at SOAS University. The reason why we have the 2 days is, on the 6th, which is the Thursday, we have an elder by the name of Kofi Bempa, who's also an author of Akan Traditional Religion, where he gives a very, very insightful look at what Akan spiritual systems entail and engage. Then on the Friday, we have our very own historian and black history man, Robin Walker. We also have the sisters, Sister Amma of Operation Sankofa, or the Black Doll Expo, and Sister Kisheniwa, who's also an initiate and will be speaking on the process of unfettering the mind.
All right, I'll be endeavoring to get to both of those sessions, Kings and Queens. You can get more information at www.ancestralvoices.com. Last and finally, no more Kings and Queens this coming Friday. For more information, do check Alkebu-Lan.org for information on Nomo and Shamira. Please check Alkebu-Lan.org. That's ALKEBULAN.org. This has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Tune in next week as we continue to talk it straight and make it plain. Around here we say
Tenai
ancestors, blacker than 1,000 midnights, African ancestors, it is to you that we, your children, give respect and honor. Oh ancestors, we call upon you and welcome you in this place. African ancestors, let your presence fill this place. Oh ancestors, who have been purposely excluded from the history books so that the world would not know of your greatness. Our African ancestors who gave civilization to the world. Our African ancestors who gave the arts to the world. Our African ancestors who gave music to the world. Our African ancestors who gave the sciences to the world. Our African ancestors who gave mathematics to the world. Our African ancestors who gave medicine to the world. Our African ancestors who gave literature to the world. Our African ancestors who gave philosophy to the world. Our African ancestors who gave God consciousness to the world. Oh ancestors, we thank you for devoting your life to make a future for us, your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Now stand with us, strengthen us, guide us, teach us, and protect us from the snare of our enemies. Rise up, O African ancestors, and let our enemies be scattered, and give us the wisdom and the boldness to deal with our oppressors and those who would hinder the liberation and empowerment of our people. Rise up, O African ancestors, and live in us, and we will not fail to honor you. We will not fail to respect you. We will not fail to hear you, and we will not betray you. Ashe.